Welcome back, Amiibros and Amigals, to my channel. We have a new nerdy DIY today, and it is related to Let's Go Eevee and Let's Go Pikachu, the new game coming out from Nintendo. Let me know in the comments below if you're excited as well, and if you'll be getting Pikachu or Eevee. Today we'll be learning how to make Eevee and Pikachu. We'll start off with Eevee, of course. If you've never made a Pom Pom before, I do have a very basic tutorial on my channel, so make sure you watch that first before you attempt this video. Special thanks to Pom Maker for providing the Pom Pom Maker in this video. Their links will be down below in the description so you can get your own. Alright, so when it comes to making Eevee, you will start off with the nose. So grab black yarn and wrap that around in the middle of the Pom Maker about 4 times. Next, grab the brown that you'll be using for Eevee's head and wrap that around the nose as well. You'll be creating an entire layer of the brown yarn. Keep in mind, it doesn't have to be too tight because in the end it's going to be too hard to cut. So again, it doesn't have to be tight, but just lightly around the Pom Maker. Please keep in mind that we still have to add the eyes, so don't make it too thick, otherwise the eyes are going to be too far apart and it's not going to look right. Grab your black string and it's time to make the eyes. So when it comes to the eyes, of course it's going to be a lot thicker than the nose, so you're going to be wrapping that around, I would say 20 to 30 times. It depends on how thick you want the eyes to look, and keep in mind they are right above the nose. I would say maybe even the same level as the nose. So don't place the black yarn too far up the Pom Maker, otherwise it's not going to look right. Once you're done, go ahead and grab your brown yarn and then continue wrapping that around. Eevee is super easy to make. That's why I wanted you guys to start off with Eevee, because she doesn't have that many facial features, so it makes it a lot easier to practice when it comes to making pom-poms. Pikachu is definitely a lot harder because there's so many facial features, as in her cheeks, her eyes, her nose. So this is very easy and simple. It's definitely the best Pokemon to start off with when you're trying to make your own Pokemon pom-poms. The second part of the Pom Pom Maker is basically you just wrapping around as much brown yarn as possible. This is going to be the back of Eevee's head. So again, there's no details in the back of her head. You're just really grabbing that brown yarn and wrapping it around as many times as possible. Huge thank you again to Pom Maker for sending me these amazing wooden pom makers. They are so durable, guys. I've made about 50 pom-poms and they have yet to either break or get damaged. So again, I will leave all their links down below in the description if you want to make your own. I do have a basic pom-pom tutorial on my channel that shows you how to make pom-poms without a pom maker. However, if you plan on making a lot of pom-poms, I highly suggest that you invest in your own pom maker. It's time to grab your pom maker, put them together, and then cut out the yarn. So it should look something like this. Most pom makers will tend to look like this. You can also see Eevee's face as well, her eyes and her nose. Make sure that when it comes to tying this pom maker off that you do several knots. The best way to tie off a pom maker is actually using wax thread because it'll hold those individual strings together. However, I didn't have wax thread, but I'll be providing all the links down below in the description for you to make your own pom-pom. What I did use to tie off this pom-pom was the brown string that I used for the head. I tied it several times and I didn't just use one string, I used several. So that's one way that you can ensure that it survives and it's very durable. But if money is not an issue, definitely use wax thread. Again, all materials in this video will be listed down below in the description, as well as my Patreon, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. I'm very active on those accounts, so definitely give me a follow. My favorite part when it comes to making a pom-pom is trimming it down and sculpting the eyes and the nose and the mouth, and that's very easy to do. You definitely will need a felting needle, but please keep in mind the felting needle is so sharp, so please be very careful. If you're not of age, definitely grab your sibling or your parent to help you out. What I like to tackle first when it comes to making pom-poms is, of course, the facial features. I decided to do the nose first, so separate the nose and then gather it all into one place. You'll be grabbing your felting needle and then stabbing it or poking it several times to make sure that the threads are blended together, and that's how it becomes really stiff. The more you poke it, the better it's going to be, because that way all the threading stays together so the colors don't mix. What I like to do personally is poke it really close to the middle or where the threading comes out. That way it really does just stay in there and it doesn't move. After that, go ahead and trim your nose to a smaller point. You can use your trimming shears or scissors. Please overall just be careful when using these tools. Basically cutting it shorter than the surrounding thread. And once you do that, it's time to tackle the rest of the features, such as the eyes. So when it came to the eyes, keep in mind that Eevee's head is kind of shaped like a dog's. So that's why you'll be cutting across from one eye to the other and creating that indent so that the nose or snout pops out. Continue trimming with your scissors. You'll be, again, trying to add as much details as possible. Keep in mind that her head is shaped like a fox or a dog, and that'll help you along when it comes to shaping the head. So one trick is keeping the head on top thinner than what's on the bottom, because the bottom contains her cheeks, so you don't want to cut too much. This is definitely my favorite part because it's so therapeutic. You're really just trying to trim and shave down this little animal, which is really, really cute. The cool thing about pom-poms is that there's so many ideas that you can use for them. So don't forget to like and subscribe so you can see all the different ideas that I have for pom-poms. Keep in mind when it comes to trimming, there'll be a lot of fluff going around, so grab some tape and just dab Eevee. That'll remove all the excess thread that tends to land on certain areas. That way there's a clear distinction between her eyes, her nose, her mouth, etc. Alright, so once you're done shaping Eevee's head, it should look a little something like this. Kind of like a pear shape, but not really. The next thing that we move on to is something very easy, and that's Eevee's mane. And again, that is really easy. I'm actually going to use half of the palm maker, not all of it, because I felt like it's too fluffy and I want Eevee's head to sit flat. The cool thing about making pom-poms is that you can go to your craft store and decide what yarn you want to use. This yarn in particular actually has brown threading in the white, so that way it adds this kind of coloration, which I really loved. My favorite part definitely was picking up the yarn and deciding what yarn to use for particular parts or Pokemon. And there's so many different types of yarn out there, and it was really cool to try to decide which ones were the best to use. Either it was too fluffy or too thin or just right. It was so much fun to go through those aisles and decide how should I tackle this Pokemon. And I would love to see what you guys come up with. So if you guys ever attempt any nerdy DIYs, let me know. Send me pictures on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. I will share it in the next nerdy DIY. Alright, so once you're done cutting out your pom-pom, go ahead and scruff it up. Make it fluffy as much as possible. Again, we'll be using this for her mane. I decided to use half of the pom-pom because it creates a flat surface for the head, so it sits on there very well and it doesn't move. When it came to shaping the mane, I decided to separate it into 3 parts. I then grabbed my felting needle and poked around to make sure it kept the shape that I wanted. I decided to go this route just because I know in the pictures of Eevee, she does have it separated into 3 parts. But you could just make it super fluffy. Check out my video how to make the fluffiest pom-pom on my YouTube channel. That video will be linked down below in the description. Okay, so this is the most tedious part, which is making the ears. When it came to making the ears, I did grab felt and I cut out the shape of Eevee's ear. Make sure you make 2, of course, because Eevee has 2 ears, not just 1. I eyeballed it. I think it's the best way, and then all you have to do if you make the perfect one is to recreate it by placing that perfect shape onto the felt and then cutting it out. Just keep in mind, don't make it too small or too big. You just want to make sure that the ear to head ratio isn't too crazy. Now this is what we're trying to aim for. The left is the finished product and the right is what we're starting off with. Remember, all links will be down below in the description for any of the materials used in this video. There are several different ways to make ears, but I decided to go this route just because it looks more yarn-like and it kind of looks like more of a plush. So this is more tedious, but I'm telling you, I love these results way better than just cutting it out on felt. So all you're doing is grabbing strands of that brown yarn, placing it on top of your ear cutout, grabbing your felting needle, and poking it as many times as possible. After having done this so many times, a quick tip is actually cutting out several strands prior to you doing this. That way it saves you so much time. I am telling you, this is the most tedious thing I've ever done, but the results are there and it makes it look really authentic. When it came to making the ears, I started off on the edges. That way it secures the threading on there directly. And then I started only on one side because once you're done with one side, you can flip it over and then recut the shape of the ear out. If you do both sides, you won't see the edges of the ear or the shape. And recutting the ear out is just so much of a hassle. So do one side first and then the other. Once you're done covering the entire ear with brown yarn, it's time to grab your brown felt. We'll be cutting that out and placing that in the inner ear. For some odd reason, I'm a very impatient person, so I like to eyeball things because it's the quickest way. I know I'll make a ton of mistakes, but that's just me. You can definitely have a pre-patterned way of doing this. It's really up to you, but I love to eyeball it. Usually I'm pretty accurate, so that's what I did here. Is that all I did was eyeball the ears till I did grab black felt, and I placed that in the inner ear because her ear actually tends to shade down to black. So you can definitely grab black felt and stick that in there. If you don't have black felt, it's actually very easy to make felt. You just grab your black yarn and you just brush it out with the bristle brush. If you want more details on all the tools, again, check out my basic tutorial on how to make the fluffiest pom-pom. Once you grab your black felt and place that in the inner ear, grab your felting needle and you're just going to poke around and try to shape that into the ear. It really does give it that shading effect. I absolutely just loved how it looked afterwards, and you can do this with a lot of the pom-poms you plan on making in the near future. One option is leaving Eevee the way it is right now, or you can grab more felt and add details to the eyes. So here I'm adding that white detail that you see in a lot of the pictures, or when it comes to anime or Pokemon. You can cut that out with the felt using your small scissors or your big ones, just please be careful. Make sure again that you cut out two because of course Eevee has two eyes. And another helpful tip is using a lot of reference pictures. So if you see my desktop, I have a ton of reference pictures of Eevee, and if you've seen her eyes, it definitely has this brown tint at the bottom, so we'll be adding that as well using brown felt. What I did to stick all of these items on there, including her ears, is hot glue. I'll be linking a hot glue gun down below in the description, so make sure you check it out. Alright, so here are a couple of honorable mentions from nerdy DIYers out there, all the me bros and the me gals listening to and watching my videos. I absolutely love all of your creations, and please feel free to send me pictures on my Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. That way you could be featured in my next video, and I love to see you guys be so creative. It seriously makes my entire day, so don't forget to send me pictures, guys. Alright, so are you guys ready for the second half of this video? This time we are making Pikachu. So of course when it comes to making Pikachu, it's kind of like Eevee. We'll be starting off with her nose, so definitely grab that black yarn and wrap it around about 4 times. Keep in mind, Pikachu and Eevee's nose aren't that big, so you don't want to add too much black thread. Grab that yellow and start wrapping that around the entire pom-pom. You want to make sure that you do cover the nose. Keep in mind, Pikachu is very, very technical, so if you need to stop this video and make sure that you're having the proportions correctly, definitely please do so. I've made overall 2 Pikachus, and this is by far the best one that I've made. So again, feel free to pause this video and make sure that it looks as accurate as possible. So now we'll be moving on to the eyes, and the eyes are, I would say, right above the nose. Again, please use reference pictures. It's out there for you, and all you have to do is just Google search an image and you'll have the proportions there. When it came to the eyes, you'll be doing a cycle of about 30 to 40 times with the black yarn, and keep in mind the width and the length. If you want Pikachu to have bigger eyes, definitely do more cycles. This is really up to you, but this is the best proportions that I found for Pikachu. So go ahead and circle that black yarn around. Make sure it's not too tight, otherwise it's going to be really hard to cut out later on. And once you're done with that, you'll be grabbing your yellow yarn and then covering up that area as well. When it came to making Pikachu, I made sure to take my time. There was absolutely no rush in making Pikachu because I wanted to make sure that it came out exactly the way I wanted it to. The first Pikachu was so disheartening because once I took it apart and saw what it looked like, I knew that it wasn't fluffy enough and that the eyes were too far apart and all that yarn was wasted. So again, please take your time. Make sure to pause this video if you want to make sure you have the proportions correctly. And if you have any questions, definitely ask them down below in the description. Next, we'll be making Pikachu's tongue. So of course the tongue doesn't stick out in this picture, but we're gonna have her tongue stick out, and that's very easy. I grabbed this light pink yarn and wrapped it around about 4 or 10 times. I don't exactly remember, but again, it's really up to you on how fluffy or how big you want the tongue to be. Keep in mind, this is very important with the tongue. I placed it right below the nose, but I did leave a very small gap in between. Keep in mind, you can use felt for the tongue, but I didn't have felt, so I actually used yarn, and I used a bristle brush to make it super fluffy. When you're done, go ahead and grab that yellow and wrap it around. I did wrap 10 cycles around the pom-pom maker in between the nose and the tongue, so it's not a lot of space, but definitely please leave that space because you will need that in order to sculpt Pikachu. Okay, so continue wrapping that yellow around, and keep in mind that we have one last part to add, and that is of course Pikachu's cheeks. So keep wrapping. You're going to be covering up everything that you've placed. So the tongue, the eyes, the nose. When it comes to the cheeks, they are right next to the nose and tongue, so make sure that you leave that space. Definitely cover up all of the tongue and make sure it doesn't show. And then when you are done, it's time to move on to the cheeks. So grab your red yarn and make sure you place that again right next to the nose and the mouth and the tongue. That is where it needs to be placed. I cycled about, I think, 40 times with the red, but if you want really fluffy cheeks, again, go for 50. It's really up to you. Just make sure that the placement is where it needs to be. I cannot stress enough that this palm maker that I have is amazing, and you can get the fluffiest pom-poms using this. So if you don't have a palm maker, definitely check out POMMaker.com. They have the best products on the market. I will have everything of theirs listed down below in the description, including their Instagram, which has a ton of reference pictures and examples. So again, check them out down below in the description. Alright, so once you're done with the cheeks, grab that yellow yarn and it's time to go crazy. So wrap that thing around as many times as possible until it cannot be stuffed anymore. We are almost done with the palm maker portion of this tutorial. I know it's very tedious, but the end result is really cute. And you can display this in your home various different ways, which I will show you in the next couple of videos. Alright, once we're done with the face of Pikachu, it's time to move on to the back of the head, which is the easiest part because all you're doing is grabbing that yellow yarn and wrapping it around like crazy. Keep in mind, you don't need to make it too tight, otherwise it's going to be really hard to cut out later on. So just lightly wrap it around the palm maker. There's such a thing as overstuffing the palm maker. I've done it so many times and it gets really hard to tie off in the end. So you want to stuff it as much as possible, but keep in mind it's going to be a lot harder to tie it off. So find that sweet spot where it's not too overstuffed and it's not too hard to tie it off in the end. Alright, so I'm going to show you a good example of overstuffing. I really wanted this Pikachu to turn out super fluffy, so as you can see, I really definitely overstuffed. It is over the edges and I can barely keep it all together. So what I did is I placed both of the pom-poms together, and then I actually got white string and I tied those ends because no longer did the palm maker parts fit, so I had to devise my own way of making sure that this stays. So this is one way that I did it. I again really overstuffed, but somehow I managed to pull through. If you happen to have this palm maker, this is one way that you can adapt to making sure that this stays together when you start cutting. This palm maker, I'm telling you, I've put it through so much work that I'm just surprised that it's lasted this long. Such a good palm maker. They will be listed down below in the description so you can get this exact one. This is Vanilla Donut. It is amazing and I love it. Alright, this is how messy the palm maker looked like after I got done with it. It is so overstuffed, and keep in mind when it's overstuffed and you're cutting all that tension, it gets even harder to keep it together. So that's why you have to take these extra precautions. Otherwise, if it comes apart, there's no way for you to fix it. I've gotten to this part of near completion, and all I needed to do was tie off the palm maker and couldn't because of how much tension built up, and I just couldn't keep it all together and I lost all of that yarn. So before you cut out your pom-pom, make sure that you can tie it off securely and it won't come apart. The best way to tie off a pom-pom is using wax thread, and then I went back in and then I actually tied it off with the yellow yarn that I used for Pikachu. That way it is secure and there is no way this thing is coming apart. This is the best way to make sure that it's durable and it lasts forever. So make sure you take this portion of the tutorial very seriously and include as many knots as possible. Okay guys, we are almost done with this portion of the tutorial. Once the pom-pom is cut, safely remove those wooden panels, and it's time for my favorite part, which is sculpting Pikachu. Once those parts come off, you can definitely grab Pikachu and fluff it around. Make it as fluffy and scruffy as possible. That's how you loosen all the yarn. And then go ahead and start shaping Pikachu. I started off with the eyes first, using my felting needle and stabbing it thousands and thousands of times. It basically merges all those threads together and it holds it in one shape. And then once you're done, go ahead and grab your scissors and cut out the eyes. Do that for both of the eyes. Make sure that it's not too short or then you're gonna lose the eyes within all that yellow yarn, but make sure that it's definitely smaller than the surrounding yarn around it. So Pikachu's nose isn't as drastic as Eevee's. You will still be separating it to make sure that it has that snout, but again, keep in mind Pikachu's snout is definitely smaller than Eevee's. So go ahead and trim that yarn in between the eyes. Make sure that it's not too short. Again, I like to keep the eyes probably the shortest thread in the entire pom-pom. That way the eyes are so distinct. So that's one way that you can use when sculpting any type of pom-pom. And then it's time to move on to the nose, which of course keep in mind the nose is very small, so do exactly what we did with the eyes, which is gather all the black threading and then poke it with the felting needle. When you're using the felting needle, please be very careful. It is very sharp. I've poked myself thousands and thousands of times. So I did not use felt for the tongue, instead I used yarn, but I just used the bristle brush to make it super fluffy. When you've done that, grab your felting needle and it's time to sculpt the tongue. Keep in mind the tongue will require the most sculpting, so that'll be a lot of poking with the felting needle, just be careful. What I like to do to make sure that I get the edges very clean is pinching the edge with my 2 fingers and grabbing the felting needle and then poking it there to make sure that I get the shape exactly how I want it. Once you have the tongue shaped out, go ahead and grab a pair of scissors and cut any excess thread. Make sure that you have a pointed end because again, it is the tongue, so it needs to look super cute. Once again, here's that technique of pinching the edge of the thread with my 2 fingers and very carefully poking it. So do you remember I told you to leave that gap in between the nose and the tongue? This is the reason why. It creates that separation between the nose and the tongue, and it doesn't look like it merges completely. So keep in mind Pikachu does have lips and you need that separation so it looks super cute. The last facial feature is of course Pikachu's iconic cheeks, and that is exactly the same thing that we're going to do with the eyes and the nose, is gather up those cheeks and then grab your felting needle and poke it like crazy. You want to make sure that you are combining those threads together so that it doesn't move and it doesn't linger onto the yellow. So continue doing that, poke it as many times as possible so it's very stiff and that it doesn't again separate. Once you're done with that, go ahead and cut it. Don't make it too short because again, you don't want it to be lost in all that yellow, but cut it as short, if anything, as the eyes. So this part of the tutorial is completely optional. It's up to you. You don't have to do this, but if you want Pikachu to be super fluffy, go ahead and grab your bristle brush. It is time to comb Pikachu. So what this essentially does is basically loosen all the individual threads within that yarn, and it makes it super, super fluffy. Again, you don't have to do this, but I highly suggest you do if you want it to be super, super cute. Once again, I will have all the materials in this video, yes, all the materials listed down below in the description so you can start making your own pom-poms. It doesn't even have to be Pokemon related. You can practically make anything in the entire world. You just need the tools. All the links will be down below in the description leading to Amazon. All you have to do is click the link, put the item in your cart, and then check out. Within 2 days, if you have Prime, it'll be at your doorstep and you can start making your own pom-poms. So just like Eevee, it's time to make Pikachu's ears, which is very simple. It's the same process that we did for Eevee, except you'll be using different colors. So of course, since it's me making this tutorial, I definitely did not measure out Pikachu's ears. I just eyeballed it, but it's up to you if you want to just have your set of proportions and figure out how to make your own. I know I'm terrible when it comes to this, trust me, but if you eyeball it, I'm pretty sure you'll get it right. Just keep trying and just keep measuring it out between you and the pom-pom and seeing if it fits and if it works and if it looks good. Alright, so grab those threads, make sure you cut them out and place them on top of your Pikachu ear. Once again, it'll be easier if you just pre-cut your thread and then place it all on top and then poke it like crazy. But I did it the struggle way. I don't know why, I just do this. But this is one quick tip so you don't have to make the mistakes that I did. Again, do one side first and then the other so that you don't lose the shape of Pikachu's ears, because yes, I've done that, and I just want you guys to avoid making the same mistakes and having it be so time consuming, because trust me, I make the mistakes so you don't have to. So here's a prime example of what we're aiming for. The one on the left is fluffier than the one on the right, and you're probably wondering why. Let me show you how to do that. After you've covered your entire ear with yarn, it's very easy. Grab a bunch of yellow yarn, grab your bristle brush, and just comb it like crazy until it's super, super fluffy. So as you can see here, it takes a bit of work, but once you have it fluffy enough, place that fluff right on top of the ear and start poking it like crazy once more. Make sure that it sticks on there. So yes, it'll take a bit of time and a lot of poking, but just make sure that it's securely on there so it doesn't fall apart. Alright, so grab your black felt. If you don't have black felt, you can just use black yarn, and go ahead and place that on the tips of Pikachu's ears. You can even use just regular felt as well, but I really wanted to make sure that I kept that yarn effect going, so I used felt instead. Once you have that placed on there, go ahead and poke it with the felting needle. Once again, please be very careful with the felting needle. It is very, very sharp. Make sure you cover the entire tip of Pikachu's ear, and make sure that you don't miss any spots as well. If you can't poke it, you can place Pikachu's ear on top of felt so it creates an extra layer in between you and the desk, so that way you don't break your felting needle. Yes, I've broken a ton of felting needles. Down below in the description, I've linked you a pack of felting needles, so just in case if you run through a ton of felting needles, don't worry, you have an entire pack to go through. Okay, so it's time to place Pikachu's ears onto the head, and that is very easy. Just make sure that you separate the thread and make sure you know where you want to place the ears. Separate all of that and leave a good amount of space, and then use hot glue and place that right in the middle. Hold it there till the hot glue dries and hardens. That way you can get the exact shape that you want. And if you want to even secure it more, definitely take your felting needle and start poking through the felt of the ear. Next, all you have to do is grab some tape and then start placing that onto Pikachu and cleaning up all the extra threading and all the fluff that you don't want in the eyes. That way it's very clear and it's clean and it looks really, really cute. This step, of course, is optional. You don't have to do this. You can leave Pikachu the way it is. However, I wanted to add extra details, so I grabbed white felt, cut out 2 small circles, and then glued that to Pikachu's eyes just to add that extra detail. It made him look really cute and lifelike, so you can definitely do this if you want. You don't have to. I was even debating whether or not to put that brown in there, but in the end I decided to just leave it with the white. Overall, I hope you guys had a ton of fun making your own pom-poms. There are more tutorials coming very soon, even pom-pom ideas that you can use to make rugs, wall art, etc. So definitely subscribe, like this video, and comment below what Pokemon I should make next. Let me know if you'll be getting Eevee or Pikachu. And I am so excited for all the content coming very, very soon. I do appreciate all the support that you guys have given me throughout the years. Check out all the links down below, as well as my Patreon. And of course, if you've subscribed already, I will definitely see you next time.